Could I have all the commissioners to the dais, please? What are we missing? Everybody's here. Okay. You want to go ahead and call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Baxter.
Here.
Commissioner Flores. Mayor Marino.
Here.
Commissioner Powell. Here. Commissioner Sachs. Commissioner Weiss.
Here.
Commissioner Woodward. Thank you.
If you don't, please stand. If you're able, please bow your heads with me. Let us pray silently together, each of us according to our belief. Let us offer thanks for the blessing of fellowship around us. Let us be a source of hope for those in need. Let the feelings of love, kindness, and a well-directed yet gentle spirit always be reflected in our actions. And as my mom always says, let us leave the world a better place than we found it. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Actually, give them to Greg. Let Greg do the cards. Just let me know what they are. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. All right, do we have any additions, deletions, substitutions to the agenda?
We do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 40, item 3E7 is a revised summary. On page 59, 318 is a deletion. On page 81, 5A1 is a revised summary. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. May I get a motion to adopt?
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Flores had the motion. Vice Mayor Baxter had the second. All in favor, all opposed. See that motion carries 6-0. Okay, we are now onto the consent agenda. I believe we have one card. Does anybody want to pull anything from consent?
I do, Madam Mayor, when you get a chance.
Okay, why don't you let us hear what you have to pull? And Commissioner Weiss, you also?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Commissioner Sachs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to pull 3E1 on page 19, 3E2 on page 28, 3E3 on page, I can't read my writing. That's right, 32 to 35. And on page 60, 3E10. And these will be brief. Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull item 3, CC1, page 73
page
through 74. I've been advised that I have to recuse myself from that item. My wife serves on the board of Speak Up for Kids.
Okay, thank you. And did you say we have a card?
We do.
And what item is that?
That's on 3E1, which has been pulled.
Okay, we'll take the card when we hear 3E1. So at this time, I've got nobody else pulling anything.
I do.
Oh, sorry. Bobby, your light is on.
Thank you, Madam
Apologize.
Mayor. I'd like to pull item on page 61, what is that, 3I11, for Town of Lake Park. Additionally, just want to discuss, we'll pull that item only. What about also, just get a little more information on item 3DD2 on page 78? That's it, just get a bit better of a
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Bobby.
3DD2, page 78. A little bit of a discussion, a better discussion there.
D as in David, David?
Hold up.
Okay, because the first time I wrote 3EE, thank you. So you wanted to pull 3I11 and 3DD2, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, do we have anything left on consent? All right, we had a motion and a second. I apologize. We need a motion and a second to approve the consent with these items pulled.
I move
Motion.
to approve.
I have a motion from the Vice Mayor, second from Commissioner Weiss. All in favor, all opposed, see that that motion carries 6-0. We will now hear the first item pulled, which is 3E1.
We have a card on 3E1, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So Commissioner Sacks, would you like to share with us why you are pulling 3E1?
Thank you so much. And that's on page 19. And I want to say that I had an excellent meeting yesterday with our staff, and especially with Tammy, who represented your community services very, very well. And I wanted to pull these because I want to put it on the record how we are helping these different agencies. So with regard to 3E1, Madam Mayor, I want to state that 3E1A, the Lord's Place, that Dr. James Green has been working very fervently in finding locations for housing for those who are in need of it, and even to push forward with the help of our building department, those permits. We have had housing there at the Lord's Place for maybe a year or two or three, and we just didn't get the permitting. But now, with Dr. Green's help, we are getting the permitting. I want to thank our Administrator Abruzzo for pushing forward the building department. When it comes to permits, when it comes to the county, we should be on top of the pile there. So now, with regard to the other items on 3E1, I wonder if Tammy could tell us the good news about what is happening with the locations for housing. And this is the whole issue. We're giving money and funding federal government, state government, county government to various nonprofits to treat folks who have addictions and for those who may be down on their luck and they just can't get enough funds to get an apartment or a place to live. What I'm looking forward to is getting them housing, and with your help, this is going to happen. So Tammy, do you want to give us a little report like you did yesterday for the record?
Certainly. We did provide your office, it was at the end of the day, all of the information that you were requesting as far as contact information for the CEOs of the various organizations. We are working with Integrated Health Systems and Housing Partnership, two of the agencies in this item, to identify land that they have and that we would be able to proceed with housing. So
Excellent.
Those are being worked on right now.
Excellent. And Dr. Green, did you want to supplement that at all with your efforts in finding even a little bit of space, a little bit of land on a treatment center, a nonprofit that we are helping to fund, so that those folks that they treat will have a place to live until they get on their feet and get a job?
Yeah, so we do understand that model has been successful, and we want to continue to promote that with our agencies. And so we'll continue to work with our treatment centers and organizations that we're funding that are providing wraparound supports to, if they have land and they want to build, then we'll work with them to get that done.
Very good. And I want to thank your group very, very much. I have no questions on that right now. I think the next one, Madam Mayor,
If
no
you're
other
done with
questions?
3E1, we have one card.
Oh,
So why don't we go ahead and take the card on 3E1?
very good.
Stephanie, it looks like Stephanie Thompson. Oh, okay, it was a comment. You didn't check what it was. It just says, thank you for your continued support of behavioral health services.
Thank you. So I have a motion from Commissioner Sacks, a second from Commissioner Flores. This is for item 3E1. All in favor, all opposed, see that that motion carries 6-0. You also pulled item 3E2, so let's take that up now.
3E2 on page 25. 3E2, A, subsection 3, Coalition for Independent Living Options. This was also brought up yesterday. I just want to make sure that if there is, I don't know if anybody is here, they don't need to be because it is on consent. However, I'm very, very knowledgeable of this coalition because I've seen them many times in Tallahassee, and I know that my fellow legislators have seen them as well. What I am working on and what I'm concerned about is, do they have any provisions for housing for the disabled? I know this is, 1,110,000, and it's only 370,000 in 1 year, but are we working with them to get housing for our disabled? And what is our, because I know they pull in a pretty good amount of state funding. Of course, it's never enough when you're a nonprofit. But are we working with them for housing?
James Green, Director of Community Services. We do have the CEO, Dan Shorter, who's in the audience. We have not discussed housing with them. We do work with them to provide rental assistance and housing assistance for some of those who have disabilities, but we have not discussed building housing or whether or not they have land to build housing. But the CEO is here and can answer those questions for you.
I wonder if the CEO could come see me afterwards, if you don't mind, sir. I'll be available for you. And I was thinking maybe, and I'll discuss it with you, sir, later, a network with our HAB Center. This is the way that we make connections, folks, so that money spent is money well spent with these connections. And because I know the HAB Center does a lot of work in the same area. So this would be very good. So with that, if there's no other questions, Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that that section be.
So item 3E2.
You got it. Thank you,
Okay,
ma'am.
so we have a motion. May I have a second, please? Second. I have a motion and a second from the Vice Mayor. All in favor? All opposed? See, that motion carries 6-0.
And moving right along, if I may.
So now
the
we are on
next-
items 3E3.
3E3, it's okay. And this, folks, is found on 32, page 32. And well, I think I was dealing with the Legal Aid Society, but I think that has been answered.
Yes.
So that's, I'm always fussy about the Legal Aid Society. And I just want to make sure that question that I had has been answered. So most respectfully, Madam Mayor, if I could move that section 3E33.
I have a motion from Commissioner
Sachs.
Sachs, a second from Commissioner
It's all right.
Flores. And all in favor, all opposed. See, that motion carries 6-0.
Thank you so much. And moving right along to page 40, and that is 3E7 on the top of page 40.
And actually, you pulled 3E10.
Called it
Oh, I did?
10, but there is no 3E10. I think she meant 3.
I think it was
3E7.
maybe it was 3I-10? Was it-
Yeah.
Whatever it is. It is now, if I could, 3E7. Is that appropriate or not?
3E7 is the,
Henley Center. And I just want to make a statement that we are working with them. And this is why I pulled it, Madam Mayor. I want to put it on the record how well our staff is doing working at 45th Street at the Henley Center for housing, because it's all about housing, for housing for those are most needy and vulnerable. And with that, I would move that motion to approve that into. Did I already?
I have a motion from Commissioner Sachs, a second from Commissioner Flores. All in favor, all opposed. See, that motion carries 6-0.
And
That's all you pulled.
yes, let me see. The very last one is 3.
No, Commissioner
was it?
Sachs, that was all you pulled.
Okay, that was it. Okay. Thank you very much, and I appreciate all the staff.
You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioner Weiss, we pulled 3CC1. So he's going to leave the dais. I don't think we need a staff presentation.
Madam Mayor, I'll move to approve item 3CC1.
I have a motion from the Vice Mayor, a second from Commissioner Flores. All in favor, all opposed. See that motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Commissioner Powell, if I'm not mistaken, you pulled 3I2. Is that correct?
I think it's
Or 3I11, sorry.
3I11.
Yeah,
Lake Park,
3I11.
yes.
Okay. Town of Lake Park splash pad.
Yes, and I just wanted to put on the record, get an understanding of that, exactly how that works.
Okay.
Right? Because there is money involved and we as a county or, and
I
there's
like
other
this one, though.
projects. like
These are
this.
federal CDBG grant dollars, so it's no requiring of a local match.
Okay,
So this is, yeah, their money. But, no, we can have a, do you want a short presentation?
Just a short presentation, then
Perfect.
we'll move it. Easy.
Short presentation.
Absolutely. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Administrator Abruzzo, Jonathan Brown, Department of Housing and Economic Development, our DCA, Tammy Fields, Deputy Director Carlos Serrano, Howard Falcon, joining us at the table. So this, with the Town of Lake Park, is an amendment to an existing agreement that we have with the town. The town was looking at doing a different CDBG project as they identified the cost for that project would be a little bit higher than expected. They switched it over to the splash pad. And so now, because the county allows a certain allocation of CDBG to the to the participating municipalities, we accepted the change request, provided it met the CDBG requirements, and we've extended it out to ensure that they can spend the money in time.
Quick question. Do we have to approve the site plan, or do we look at it as only the town of Lake Park?
The town of Lake Park would do that.
Thank you. No further questions, Madam Mayor.
Would you like to move the resolution?
I'd like to move the item.
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize. This is a receive and file. So we
I'd
have,
like to receive and file it.
we have a first from Commissioner Powell, a second from Commissioner Flores. All in favor, all opposed. See, that motion carries 6-0. The second item is 3DD2 on page 78. Commissioner Powell?
Easy, simple, just wanted to know exactly how it works.
I'm sorry?
Want to know exactly how it works, and then we can move the item.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
For the process on that.
tell them how it works.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Administrator Abruzzo, Emmanuel Perry, Executive Director of the Tourist Development Council. I'm joined with Chief Deputy County Administrator Todd Bonlaren to my right. I have Liz Herman with County Attorney Office. So right now we have 11 grants, high-level overview. These are dollars that are received through tourist development taxes. They're paid for by our taxes. We allocate these dollars to help fund small to mid-size cultural council grants. They have to receive a dollar-for-dollar match. So these dollars are paid for on the reimbursement process. The budget that they have to have is $1.1 million. And we use these to bring in heads and beds and butts and seats for our cultural organizations.
Great. Would you like to make the motion?
I'd like to make a motion to move the item.
Receive and file, okay. And do I have a second, please? Second. I have a second. We'll get this one to Commissioner Weiss. All in favor, all opposed. See, that motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
All right, so we are done with consent. We have no public hearings, but I do need a motion to receive and file proof of publication.
Second. Did he move it? Oh, so moved.
Okay, I have a motion from the Vice
Second.
Mayor. I have a second from Commissioner Powell. All in favor, all opposed. See, that motion carries 6-0. I always forget that one because it's like a standalone. All right, we are on to the regular agenda, item 5A1, investment policy. Does anyone need a presentation?
No.
I'm not seeing a request for a presentation. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Mayor, I'll move to approve 5A1.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. You got that? Thank you very much. All in favor? All opposed? See, that motion carries 6-0. Before we go on to the recruitment selection for the attorney, may I ask to reorder the agenda to move airports up so that we can allow Ms. Beebe to go back to work?
So moved.
I have a motion. I need a second. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. So we're going to move airports up. All in favor? All opposed? See, that motion carries 6-0. Does anybody need a presentation on airports?
No.
Okay.
So I move to approve 5B1, A and B.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? See, that motion carries 6-0. We will now go back to item 5A2 on the regular agenda. This is the recruitment and selection process for the county attorney. Discussion. Commissioner Powell.
Real quick, Madam Mayor, and talk to the administrator, are the candidates for county attorney posted online on the website yet?
Good morning. The answer is no. That wasn't part of the initial plan, but we are prepared to have those up by tomorrow. Just as we did with the county attorney or the county administrator selection, I email them to make sure they're aware that their resumes are going to be posted. And
I think what we're doing right now is the discussion of how we're going to go forward with this.
okay,
So Commissioner Powell, that was your question. Are we going to post them? And if so, when? Correct? Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks for it. Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
we have 8 that we received in our inbox yesterday. So, Dr. Khan, what is it you would like from us today?
so based on the direction from the board, we, FACA, the Florida Association of County Attorneys, will be reviewing the eligible candidates and providing a recommendation of who to interview. So the direction I'm asking for is how many people would you like to interview?
Before or after we get the recommendations from FACA? Oh my God, everybody's lights just went on.
Well, I'm asking because if you want to interview 3 people, then I would ask FACA to give me your top 3. They would be unranked. If you want to interview 5, then I would tell them 5. So.
Well, everybody's light is on, so Commissioner Sachs, why don't you go ahead?
Appreciate it. Dr. Khan, I'd like to know the process first, before we make decisions on who we're going to interview. Why don't you inform the board about what the process is that we determined last time we met?
Okay.
Thank you,
So
sir.
the process that I was directed to do was post the position, and we posted it on a number of websites, professional associations all over the state, including our site. Though posting closed on October 17th, this past Friday at 5 p.m., we received a total of 10 applications. 8 of those met the eligibility that was directed by the board. With those 8, which you have received, we would, with your approval, those will go to FACA to review and provide their recommendation of the top candidates. Once we have whatever number is determined, I would be back here on November 4th with that list, your approval, and then we would do interviews the following week, one-on-ones on the Monday, and then the public interview on the Tuesday. That would be, if I'm the 4th, which means I would be in front of the board. The one-on-ones would be taking place on the 10th, and the interviews and selection would take place on the 11th, was the time frame that we discussed at the last meeting, or last time we discussed this.
On the 11th,
November 11th.
that's Veterans Day.
Yeah, there's no,
Is that the reorg date?
No.
no, that's the 18th.
Oh, that's a workshop date, the 11th?
11th, we
If
are
the 11th
closed.
If we're closing the 11th, then I would work with you to find a different date.
Let's do it now.
Could we do the 2nd and the 3rd?
December 2nd and 3rd?
Or 1st and 2nd.
Election.
No, I would think we would. I think if we're down,
November.
I think if we're down to 8 folks right now, I think we could probably get through this process and do it at the beginning of November, as opposed to wait till December. So I think what we need to do right now is figure out, do we want to move all 8? Do we want to read through the 8 and come up with 4 and give our 4 names, or do we want to choose 4 out of the 8? I think that's, before we figure out when, I think we need to figure out who and move that forward. So,
May I suggest?
sure, anybody, go right ahead. Vice Mayor Baxter.
I would suggest if we meet with all 8 people individually, pick a day to do that, and then if we all pick top 2, what are the chances that we've all picked, and then see how many we end up with, and then we'll interview those.
Some of these are people in other states. So would we do virtual for them, or would we fly them in for the one-on-ones?
Well, I think we do the one-on-one on whatever Tuesday we decide to have this vote, we do the one-on-ones the Monday before. So they were only here for 2 days.
Sorry, I meant when we're narrowing down the 8. You were
Those are the one-on-ones.
Okay.
And then at the end of the day, we provide you our individual top twos. And then from there, you just bring them to the board on Tuesday.
Good question.
I mean, we only want
I've
three,
got,
but
I've got the Attorney Kaufman shaking her head.
We have to do all voting and all decision-making in the public, so you need to come back the next day, and you can hand in your votes at that time, but we can't have you handing in outside of a meeting. We can't have you making decisions outside of a meeting, even narrowing down. If you're going to narrow down 8 applicants, you need to do it in the public. So in other words, after you meet with them on Monday, you come back Tuesday, and at that time, you make your decision to the narrowing down.
so on Tuesday, we would then have to discuss, sorry, just
right
following
ahead.
up.
Con-
So we
continue.
would have to discuss the top 2, and then we would just interview those people publicly?
Correct. Correct.
Whatever seems simple.
What do,
Madam Mayor, I have a suggestion. Since we've all got the resumes now, and let me know if I'm putting the cart before the horse. But we've got 8 resumes, and barring all 8 of these people are staying, we don't have anybody dropping out. We could reasonably look at the resumes ourselves, and at the next meeting, between us as a board, I mean, we can cut this in half, narrow it down to 4 or 3. I mean, feasibly, realistically, we could go to lunch and come back and, but we want to give everybody a chance to know, keep everything in the public. But we can cut right through this and put it down pretty quickly if we've got, it's not like we had 120 applicants. We've got 8. We can do this pretty quickly, in my opinion.
no, I agree with you. I printed them out and read them last night and actually picked my top 4 already. So I'm happy if everybody else wants to do that. And we have actually several meetings. We have a zoning meeting on Thursday, and then we have a workshop on the 28th. We can always take the resumes. I don't want to ask anybody to do this right now over lunch. I don't think that's enough time. But we could maybe add on at the zoning meeting or add on at the workshop, come back with our top 4, and then choose to top 4 from what we've read, and then we could choose to interview them. How we do them, when we do the interviews, that'll be probably the Monday, Tuesday. But I would look for more suggestions or clarification from anyone else. Commissioner Weiss, you haven't spoken yet.
So I'm just trying to understand the role of the FACA or FACA.
Exactly.
So they will review these, and so if we ask them for their top 4, how long will that take?
We will have that in by November 3rd,
Okay. So I'd
and
like
then our
to,
meeting would be on the 4th.
I mean, I'm happy to hear what they have to say too, since they're all attorneys that these are county attorneys that'll be looking this over.
Yes.
Right. So I'd be interested what the other county attorneys think.
So move 8 or move a portion of the 8?
I'd like to go, if we're going to do 4, I'd like them to do 4, and let's see what they come up with, what we come up with, and put it all together.
Okay. Commissioner Flores.
So the way I'm thinking about this, I sort of like the ideas that you guys have put forward so far. We only have 8 candidates. I think reasonably we could cut down this to half, 4. I think we should probably do it make that determination on Thursday at the zoning hearing. That way you give people enough time to make accommodations to be here on the 3rd, which is a Monday, I believe. And then we can have the public meeting on that 4th. That way they have enough notice to be able to make accommodations to come here on the 3rd and the 4th. and then we interview individually on Monday, each, those 4 candidates, and then all 4 have a seat at the table. I think there was 4 when we did the administrator, so it would probably go similar to that.
Right.
I would probably say we do that right after we do the proclamations. Would everybody be okay with that?
Actually, I think not knowing how long the discussion for the attorney is going to be, I would think we would put that at the end of the meeting.
At the
At the end of the meeting. Let the business meeting get over with and then do the
don't we have the at 2:00 public by the matters
matters by the public, yes. It's always a long day on the first meeting of the month is always a long day. But
I think it would make sense considering the reorg happens the following meeting, so that way we know who.
But the attorney's not going to be there for the following, as attorney.
No, I understand, but I think by then we would know who that next attorney is going to be.
Oh, I'm not debating the 4th. I'm debating just when on the 4th. That's all. I think the timeline is set, but I'm just saying I don't think the attorney should be right after the proclamations. Let's get the business of the meeting at hand and then.
The place and time of when we actually do it, I don't mind.
Okay.
I'm just thinking that I think for date-wise,
Yeah, the 3rd and the 4th.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Do you need a motion, or?
I still have a couple lights on. So, Vice Mayor, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I'm good with everything I've heard so far. I do like the idea of us narrowing down. We don't need to have one-on-ones necessarily. We can go over the resumes. But just for clarification then, so are we coming back and presenting our top 4 that we choose? When are we doing that?
Sounds like zoning.
So Thursday.
Thursday.
All right, so we'll have our 4 ready on Thursday. And then we'll choose on the first meeting in November. We'll do those interviews.
The interviews will be on Monday. Individual interviews with each of us.
So no public interviews?
And then on Tuesday, we'll do the public interviews.
Is that
It's like we did with
necessary to have private and then public interviews?
I would prefer it, actually.
Okay.
And it's 4. We can easily do a schedule like we did with the, like we did with the administrator. I think it'd be fine.
Sure.
Commissioner Sachs, everybody's lights are still on. And Administrator Abruzzo, your light is on. Why don't you go ahead, Administrator Abruzzo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention, we do have a workshop on October 28th. Right now, from an administration standpoint, we only have 1 item on that agenda, so that is an extremely light meeting, and I wanted to clarify that.
If we have anybody that's from out of town, I would hate to have them come in and go out and then come back. So we could we get the information 27th? Let's go 27th. Could we do 27th and 28th is what it sounds like we're moving towards instead of 3rd and 4th.
My only concern is we're only giving the candidates 1 workday to clear 2 days to be here. If I have the list on the 23rd, we notify them on the 23rd.
Okay. Actually, Commissioner Powell and then Commissioner Sachs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we're still sending this to the fact board, it would be similar to, and this is process, and Mr. Khan may need to hear this, that if the fact board narrows it down and there's a candidate that we, as commissioners, think should have been there, that was a part of the original 8, we should have that option of bringing that person back. Is that to be understood or not?
That's very similar to what we did with the administrator.
Correct.
So if we wanted to send these off to what is it, FACA? FACA, F-A-C-A, if we wanted to send it to them, ask them to send us their recommendation for the top 4, and if there was somebody on there that we didn't, we wanted but they didn't include, we could add them. But my suggestion then is these need to go to them now, and they need to come back to us by the 28th with recommendations.
If that's possible, is it possible?
I'm sorry.
What we were talking about was send this list off to FACA now, have them do the 4. We can go through this with and make our 4 suggestions, and if their 4 and our 4 don't seem to match, we can add 1 or 2 more if we need to.
What FACA brings would be a recommendation. So anyone on that list, the board could take off or add. But FACA did say they wouldn't be able to they're going to try to get it sooner, but the deadline would be November 3rd. So that doesn't mesh with doing the one-on-ones on the 3rd.
Okay, Commissioner Sachs, your light is on.
This is a very important decision because we keep our county attorneys many, many years. Whatever decision we do, as long as each of us have an opportunity to interview each person individually, either by Zoom or in person, it's important. Number one. Number two, let's not rush this. If we need to do this, and I don't care what day it is, I just do not want to be rushed. We have our good attorney here until December. And I know there'll be a transition period where our county attorney will work with the new county attorney to transition, as well as the other assistant county attorneys. But I don't see any reason to rush this or to move it forward quickly. This is the attorney for 1.5 million people. So let's do this. I think that your programming is good. We have 8. Individually, we will interview them. And I think that we should take our due diligence in choosing the county attorney. So that's all I have to say. Whatever, I don't want to be pushed into this or do it quickly because, first of all, we have enough time for our county attorney. She's not leaving until December. What day in December are you leaving? The end, right, Ms.
Middle.
The middle. Okay. All right. So we've got some time. We have some time, and especially for the transition while you're here, okay, to transition for the new county attorney.
Just a reminder that anybody that is in private practice or might need to relocate, that's going to be at least 30 days before they'll be able to start.
Easily. And as I said before, when you leave private practice, there's certain regulations by the Florida Bar to contact all your clients, give them ample time to get an attorney. And so even if we choose someone who is in private practice, they're not going to come over here, fly over here and start on a Monday morning. They've got to do their due diligence under the Florida Bar. So definitely let's take this a step at a time and know that anyone in private practice is going to take an additional, I think 30 days, right? Yeah, 30 days. So that's all I have to say about it.
Administrator Abruzzo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We can notify the 8 applicants to keep time open, especially for the 28th. We can notify them today to give them ample time. So we're not just giving them 1 day's notice. We can give them a much longer runway. That there's 8 applicants, you're in consideration. This may or may not change, but leave this date open. Just looking at the meeting schedule, so just to clarify, we have the 28th as a workshop, which just has 1 item, an extremely light day. We move into the November 4th is our regular BCC meeting. 11/18 is our reorg for our new mayor and vice mayor. And then on the 25th of November, we have a workshop. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell, then Commissioner Flores.
I want to speak as the voice of reason. Think about this. All of the applicants that we've received are qualified. They're attorneys who've been practicing over 10 years, looks like.
Yes.
And they have to meet certain standards. They passed the Florida Bar. They are situated. We had anticipated for process that we would have many more than the 8 that we have, which meant it would have been useful for us to use FACA, right? So if there's only 8 candidates, have we entered into a contract with FACA yet, Mr. Khan?
It has not been executed.
And we're anticipating paying them $5,000
Yes.
to review 8 applicants who we can see are duly qualified? I would like to know, Madam Mayor, the pleasure of the body, if it's absolutely necessary that we spend $5,000 to review 8 applicants that we see are duly qualified, or if we just want to do that for process to take a recommendation for 8 applicants. Basically what I'm saying is, do we just want to give away this money? Is that necessary?
I actually don't see why we need FACA at this time. I know we thought we were going to get more applications, but we have 8. And at the end of the day, it's going to be this board that makes the recommendation who we hire. So I think we have the power to figure out of those 8 who would be the one we want. I don't think we really do need FACA.
It would be my opinion.
Of course.
And we can take a vote on it, Madam Mayor. It'd be my opinion that we, at this point, eliminate the FACA step. That's just me. I think we can get an opinion from everybody on the board, but I don't see it as completely necessary.
Agreed.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores.
I think to me, we're also speaking the same language right now. I think FACA is not required in this particular case because we only have 8 candidates who are all met the minimum criteria. I think what we should probably look at logistically is what is the right date to do the one-on-ones and which date do we pick to do the public interviews. I would like it to be preferably before that reorg. That way we select the individual, we enter into negotiations, they give their 30 days, and hopefully they're here by the time our current attorney leaves. But I'm willing to look at over the next 3 dates. I don't know if you guys believe the 27th and 28th is too rushed, but I think ideally the 3rd and the 4th would make sense, although it would make that meeting a little bit longer. I think that's what we're pretty much need to agree right now, because I think we sort of have the lay of the land right now. Right.
Madam Mayor, I think we're between 2. So does the board want either the 27th and 28th, or do we want the 3rd and the 4th?
Commissioner Weiss, and your light is on, and I'll give you my opinion when he's done.
I had a question for you in regards, one of the qualifications was it a required qualification that they had to be admitted to federal?
No.
Yes.
Was anybody not, were there any of the resumes of the other 3, because you said there was 11 on here, that any of the other 3, the only thing missing was not being?
That was not the, pardon me, that was not the only thing missing from some of the candidates who were not considered eligible.
Because my understanding is anybody can be admitted to federal court, they just have to apply for that.
That was not the single reason why anyone was eliminated.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that, thank you.
Thank you. I believe if we can give notification to the 8, that the 27th and 28th would be a good time for us. I think the 3rd and the 4th, we have agenda reviews on the 3rd for everyone, and then trying to figure out interviews in the same process, and then a long day on the 4th between proclamations and matters by the public. I believe that the 27th and 28th would be a good time. Would that be amenable to the rest of the board?
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss, your light is still on. Okay, thank you. All right, so I think board direction is we set up interviews for the 27th. Our question is now on the 28th, are we bringing all 8? Are we bringing 4? How do we do our 4 to move them forward on the 28th?
We were bringing that this Thursday.
So we want to bring our choice of 4 to this Thursday's meeting? Okay. Commissioner Sacks?
What if I have 5?
Narrow it to
Okay.
4. Narrow it to 4. Because somebody else may have that 5th.
Well, if we all have 4, then statistically, we could have all 8 represented, because he could have a couple that I don't have, I could have a couple that, Commissioner Powell doesn't have. So basically, out of the 8, 4, and it may not be the same 4, but 4 will be, this is like a wrestling match or something, 4 will remain, right? Could be 4 different than all of us. And if there is an issue where somebody says, I definitely have to have 5, then maybe we'll deal with that as we go forward. But I agree with the 4.
I think
agree
we
with the
can,
4.
if we turn over our 4 to Dr. Khan, he can definitely put them together. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I think our
Madam-
attorney said it had to be done here.
Right, we're
in
picking the
public.
4 here.
So-
No, we're picking our 4 here.
You have to pick your 4 here at a
Correct.
at a
We're going to
public
do that
meeting.
on Thursday.
It could be similar to the voting for the county administrator, where it's the 4 with the most number of
Correct.
selections.
Correct. And if there's someone that's absolutely strident about a 5th, do we add a 5th? I got a no. I got a lot of no's. Okay. So on Thursday, at the zoning meeting, we will add, it'll be an addition to the agenda on the zoning meeting, that we all will bring our 4 people. Okay. Hopefully they'll all be the same 4. Then we'll know. Commissioner Powell. Sure.
What I was thinking, right, is we would work that out here. And if we come up with 4 amongst each other, as Dr. Khan indicated, we could kind of narrow it down through process of elimination. And I would also say that as commissioners, if we find that we only want to pick 1 or 2 apiece, I don't think we should be obligated to have to get to 4. But amongst the board, if we want to get to 3 or 4, that we all would agree to move to the next round. And you know what? I would even go as far as to say if the whole board came up with, we only said, oh, we're just going to move forward with these 2, that'd be fine too. I think we need to keep our options open and not be obligated to say just because we have 8, we need to have that cut in half. We need to come up with a number that's feasible for the board and move forward in that manner. If we get to 4, that's cool. And I don't believe at any point should we get to 5. But if we get to 3, even better. But we do it here in the public where we can process them. And what'd be beautiful is we got to 1.
Well, that's wishful thinking.
We would make that decision together on the board, as a board.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores.
I think we just make this easy. On Thursday, we decide to cut it down to either 3, 4, 5, and we come to a consensus. But we could do that on Thursday.
I agree. Okay. Do you have your marching orders?
I do. If a candidate's not available to be here on the 27th and 28th, then they're withdrawing from the process. Is that?
I would
Correct.
pretty much say yes to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will let you know between now and Thursday if any of them withdraw.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And so you know what your direction is today.
I do. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Board, for the lively discussion. And I apologize. I wanted to bring down our new Executive Director for the League of Cities and let her introduce herself. Since Richard Radcliffe has retired, the League of Cities put out a search, and Amelia is our new Executive Director. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little of your background.
Thank you. Good morning. I will be brief. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, County Attorney, County Administrator. As the Mayor mentioned, my name is Amelia Jadu. I'm the newly appointed Executive Director for Palm Beach County League of Cities, representing all 39 municipalities here in Palm Beach County. With 20 years as a licensed attorney, serving as a municipal attorney, assistant county attorney, and a business litigator, I have extensive experience collaborating with government agencies as well as elected officials and serving in a variety and various leadership roles. I'm excited to lead the league in expanding our membership, amplifying our voices in our advocacy in Tallahassee, and fostering collaboration and resource sharing among our members and external partners, including the county. So you have an open invitation to visit me on the 10th floor. I'm also happy to meet with you in your office or get on a call with you. And I look forward to working with you in our partnership. So thank you for this opportunity to introduce myself and just say hello, and please reach out.
Amelia, thank you, and thank you for, it was a pleasure chatting with you last week. As a former municipal elected, similar to Commissioner Flores, we understand the importance of the League of Cities, and we also understand the importance right now with the countywide transportation master plan, the partnership between all of our municipalities and the county. So thank you for being here now. Thank you for being part of that process also, and we look forward to a continued relationship with the League of Cities.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay, so we have done item A, 1, 2, 5B. We are on now 5C1. Does anyone, we have some cards, and does anyone need a presentation? All right, I don't see anybody looking for a presentation, but we have cards, so, okay, we'll do this at the end.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Mitch Rosenstein. Followed by Pastor Sheila Harvey.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mitch Rosenstein.
Can you talk into the mic?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Mitch Rosenstein, Green Mills Group, 16520 Via Venetia East, Delray Beach, 33484. I'm a principal of Green Mills Group. We are proudly partnering with UCC Church on Haverhill and Summit to build Peace Village. Just wanted to make ourselves available if there are any questions. And we thank you for the support, and we thank staff's efforts. They were diligent. The application process and the interviews were comprehensive, and we're really excited to move forward. Our plan is to build 104 homes, capital A, affordable housing for seniors in Palm Beach County, 62 and older, on land that will forever be owned by UCC Church. We have executed a 99-year ground lease so that the church never has to sell their property. Again, the card was really intended for questions only, but we'll make ourselves available. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Reverend Dr. Sheila Harvey, pastor of Union Congregational, United Church of Christ, and it is a pleasure to be with you, and we are honored that you all are considering this vote today. We have chosen to use our land as part of the ministry of our church for all seniors who are in need. We know that there is a housing crisis, and we are so grateful that you all are seeking to address it. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see anyone requesting a presentation.
I'll move it. So that'd be 5C1, A, B, and C.
I have a motion from Commissioner Weiss, a second from Commissioner Flores. All in favor, all opposed, see that motion carries 5-0. We're now on to item 5C2, and this is staff's motion to approve $588,000, this disbursement of $588,000 that was generated from bond interest.
And we have one card.
And we have one card, and actually I would like a presentation because I have questions.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, Administrator Abruzzo. I'm Tammy Fields, Deputy County Administrator, and before I kick this off to the staff here, I want to introduce Jonathan Brown, Director of Housing and Economic Development, Carlos Serrana, Deputy Director of Housing and Economic Development, David Behar from the County Attorney's Office, and Mary Weimer, who is the Division Director for Economic Development within the department. This is a very unique project or proposal that is being presented to the board, and I do want to commend the department for thinking outside of the box in a way to promote the interests of small businesses in the community. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Carlos Serrano.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. As Tammy said, this item seeks your approval of some proposed uses of some unusual revenue that the department came into. As you're aware, when industrial development revenue bonds are issued by third parties, the tax-exempt status of those bonds requires their approval by the local government. When the county approves those, we receive a fee for that. So there was a large bond issuance earlier this year that resulted in $588,000 of fee revenue to the county, and we're looking to utilize this to serve small businesses. We recommend using the dollars for 3 initiatives that will target micro enterprises, small businesses, 5 or fewer employees, that constitute the vast majority of small businesses in the county. So, the first of the 3 uses would put $400,000 out of the $588,000 towards a small business revolving loan program. We'd do a minimum of 40 loans up to $10,000 per loan. There has been discussion, though, as well, of we're open to your direction as to setting some higher maximum funding amount, $20,000 or otherwise. Again, targeting small businesses, would do those for 5-year terms at 3% for for-profit enterprises, 2% for any not-for-profits that were doing some business-like activity. The second proposed use of the funding would be allocation of $140,000 towards a small business training and development program in partnership with Grow America. Grow America is a national organization that formerly operated as National Development Council. They provide economic development training, certification through jurisdictions throughout the United States. Specifically, we would engage them to work with our small businesses here to provide training, technical assistance, and get them loan ready to obtain financing, whether from conventional lenders or through Grow America's own pool of loan capital or the county's small business loan programs. The third and final proposed use, we'd look to use that remaining $48,000 out of that $588,000 for departmental marketing and outreach efforts aimed at increasing participation of small businesses in our programs and expanding awareness of our resources.
Okay. I have questions.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, first. So I looked at the long-term payment and program cost sheet, and I have a couple of questions. So one is, who pays, there's a UCC filing fee. Who pays that? Is it the business or us?
It would be the business.
Okay, thank you. And it says here, county attorney review included at no cost, documents already prepared, but truly that's a built-in fee already. So how many hours do you figure it will take for our attorneys to go through this? I mean, title insurance, when somebody's doing a loan and there's insurance and all that, you know, loans take a little bit of time. So how much of time are our attorneys going to spend on this?
I'll ultimately defer that to David, but again, I would say with this particular program, in typical programs, we would develop a template. We would have the county attorneys review the template, because in this particular case, it's probably not going to be a real estate transaction. It's more likely going to be some sort of machinery and equipment, possibly inventory, assets. We'll work with the county attorneys, develop a template that we would look to use throughout the life of the program, and whenever we make changes to that based on the business needs, we'd consult with the county attorney. But David will probably be better at gauging time based on his other priorities.
Jonathan's correct. It'll be a little bit of work up front, and then we'll have a template set forth where then it's sort of fill in the blanks, because all the loans are going to be similar. So we don't anticipate a lot of time per loan.
Because, you know, we always talk about when we get grants and how much time each different department actually puts in, and we never count that as a cost. This is true, and it is a cost. So I just wanted to make sure we're not, because it is a cost, it's not going to be a lot of time. That's what I was concerned with. Thank you. Do we, as a board, I think this is something that we want to discuss, is there any do we have any types of businesses that we want to include or not include? I mean, restaurants fail miserably, so I'm not so sure I'd want to don't do this with a restaurant in mind. I'd love to see the trade industry grow. So it's just I'm throwing it out there for discussion because I'd like to see, if a business fails, we don't get paid back. That money doesn't, the velocity of money, it doesn't keep continuing. So that would be another one of my questions, but that would be for board discussion. And those are all the questions I wrote here. So Vice Mayor Baxter.
Hi, thank you, Madam Mayor. So a couple things we were discussing. There's not numbers on this, but I believe it's slide 3. The revolving loan program.
Yes, ma'am.
So I do not want to make people borrow $10,000. I think it should be up to a certain amount. And with the cost of everything going through the roof, I think I would like to see it to be up to $20,000. But if they only need 5 or 10 or, that just seems to make more sense. $10,000 doesn't go a long way. And we are, to clarify, requiring collateral, whether it's 10 or 20. Are we not?
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct.
So I think that gives a little bit more options for different businesses. I don't want to get into the weeds of trying to narrow in and out businesses. I think the mayor makes a valid point that restaurants can fail, but I also don't want to start trying to pick and choose winners and losers on types of businesses if we're already requiring collateral. That's something I'd like to see. The loan term of 5 years is good. The interest rate, I'm good with that. I think the rest of it, I really enjoyed. Did you get numbers? I had asked, what does it cost an applicant to
That's the sheet that we have in front of you. It broke down the costs. So the main costs are going to be their repayment as well as the UCC 1 filing.
So I don't have this sheet in front of me. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure if we're truly doing programs to help our business community, where they're not paying $5,000 to get a $10,000 loan.
Yes, ma'am.
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But it doesn't look like that's the case here.
You're correct, Vice Mayor.
So, no, I do appreciate this, and thank you again.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Weiss, then Commissioner Flores.
Thank you. Virtually the same comments as Vice Mayor. It's collateralized, so I'm not. Obviously I want us to get repaid, and I want them to be successful, but it is collateralized. So in the case that they can't, county taxpayers will be made whole. I also agree the 20,000 cap is probably reasonable, and I also agree that it should be up to, not, you don't have to take 10 or whatever. And then as it relates to, they're all taxpayers. Everybody should have as equal ability to have access to this money regardless of the business. I think it's taxpayer dollars. They're all taxpayers, so they should all have the opportunity.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores.
Yeah, I'm excited about this program. I like the specs on the loan. One of the things that I will echo some of the Vice Mayor's and Commissioner Wise's comments. If I'm okay going up to 20,000. Some pieces of equipment might be more than $10,000. So this will help. I think it's collateralized, so that way if something happens, we still have that piece of property or equipment. It says it's a minimum of 40 loans. That's going to change, obviously, if we go up to 40, to 20,000. My question is, as the money is being paid back, are we going to then go for a second round next year, even though we may not have as much money coming in? But if we're able to help 1 or 2 businesses next year as the money comes in, is this going to be a revolving program, essentially?
Commissioner, that is the intent, as long as the board gives us that ability to keep it revolving as we wanted to present it, and we present it as revolving. If the board gives us that direction, we would love to continue to keep that program going.
I would like to see it that way. The other thing is, are these for Palm Beach County businesses and residents? Meaning, is there a business that operates or is housed in outside of Palm Beach County, but they do business in Palm Beach County? Are they eligible, or is it own and operate in Palm Beach County?
We would look for the business to be located in Palm Beach County.
Okay. They're registered.
Have a physical location here in the county and registered to do business here in Palm Beach County.
Okay. The other item that I wanted to bring up is last week I spent a little bit of time in Tampa, sort of learning about some of the things that they did or they do. They do have a microloan program, and with their microloan program, it was sort of like a caveat that they had to be part of an education component of it, and it seems like we are going to be providing also an educational component. Is that something that we might be able to build in, that some of these people, if they're on the brink, we put them through the accelerator program, the Grow America program? Is that something that we could help them so that they're able to flourish?
Absolutely. Our goal is to make sure we strengthen the small businesses, so we would definitely love that and create opportunities for small businesses, financial opportunities in the future that may or may not need to be funded through the county, because Grow America has access to capital as well.
Right. And then yesterday when we talked about this, you said this is a 6-week program. What is the time commitment on a weekly basis for these business owners?
So great question, and Joe Gray from Grow America is here. So it's a 6-week program, typically 2 hours. As we discuss this with Grow America, what we do understand is that some businesses can do it 6 weeks consecutively. Other businesses may need up to 12 weeks to get their 2 hours a weekend to get that training.
So is this virtual?
It's virtual training, and then not only will they have the group sessions, they will also have that one-on-one financial and that mentoring opportunity with Grow America.
And how do we, since it's virtual, how do we make sure that they complete the program? What's the caveat for them to complete the program?
So a couple different caveats. I think one of the main ones is that in order to access capital not provided by the county through Grow America, they're going to have to complete the program. That's going to be one. And then for us, we also want to continue to encourage and push them, because we also want to expose them to what we do in our small business development office. If they're not currently certified with the county, give them an opportunity to do business with the county, and expose them to some of the other larger programs, loan programs we have for businesses within our economic development office.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have. I want to thank staff for putting this program forth. I'm very happy about it. I think we should continue to invest in our small businesses. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner.
If I could add to your question, one of the things that has come up is whether or not we want the small business to pay a portion of the fee for the partnership with Grow America. So that would be one of the things we would ask for direction, whether we have that at $100 that they're paying or $500 that they're paying. So they're invested as well in the education component.
And if I can piggyback on what Tammy is saying as part of the shared costs, one of the things too, if you could consider, some of the businesses are going to be at different financial levels. We'd love the opportunity to review those financials also to determine where on that payment scale they could probably fit, because again, we are talking about 5 employees or less. This isn't your $500,000, million, $2 million annual revenue companies. These are going to be a lot smaller. And so, looking at financials may also be a way to determine a percentage of share for that business.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So I think we should charge something. Do we have a specific number right now?
I think that's up for discussion.
Okay. And
How much do you think we should charge?
I don't know, but I think I think that's part of the caveat, that if they put a little something, they may want to finish the program. I don't know what that number is, maybe $100. Maybe it could even be refundable at the end of when they complete the program. And I also think that we should make sure that when they go through this program, they get certified through the county. So I think that should also be included in this program.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is somebody from Grow America here, Mr. Brown?
Yes, sir. Mr. Joseph Gray.
Mr. Gray, if you don't mind coming to the mic, I just want to, and I know we had a conversation way back, for us to get a full comprehensive understanding, and maybe not even a full comprehensive, but just a little bit more information with regard to Grow America. With the county's funding, what will be the return on investment for individuals who enroll in the program? I heard Mr. Brown indicate that there's an opportunity for additional funding outside of the county. Can you explain exactly how that works so that we'll know exactly what we're investing in?
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner, and thanks, Madam Mayor and Commissioners, for considering this program. We're really excited about the possibility of working with the county to support small businesses here. Grow America is a national nonprofit organization. We're a community development financial institution, been around for a little over 50 years, supporting communities in a variety of ways. And this program we created basically to ensure that those smallest of businesses that are generally the riskiest entities when it comes to lending, that they have an opportunity to actually to be in the game. So I think there are a couple of benefits that the county accrues from participating in a program like this. The primary benefit is that it strengthens the local economic ecosystem as relates to the participation of small businesses, and it helps to mitigate against default for both the county's funds and our funds and other private sector funds. But I think the most important benefit is that we create the potential for a lot of businesses that would fail or get themselves in trouble to not do that, to have a chance to succeed, to scale and grow and be successful by having the support, the training that they need, and to be able to access capital in a responsible way. One of the things that we do in the program is help the businesses build a realistic financial model that's based on them being able to operate in the real world, where they're not dependent on grants, they're not dependent on subsidies, they are operating and growing as any business would do. So I think the main benefit is that your revolving loan fund actually has a better chance of revolving, because you'll have businesses that have the capacity to be successful.
Thank you. With regard to, and thank you, with regard to the Grow America program, the loan funds, the $400,000 that we are, and I would agree with my colleagues that $20,000 should probably be what it should go up to, with no cap. I mean, without a minimum being established. I would also point out that there's a very good interest rate at 3% for profit businesses and 2% for nonprofit businesses. And I like the idea that is a revolving loan fund. We'd had this discussion a little bit yesterday with regard to if there's a certain amount that would be kept in escrow where the interest would be used to continue to fund, but the revolving portion of it is, I believe, from my understanding, what will be used to continue to fund the program. I think that I am totally in favor. I don't believe there's any reason to put any caps on any types of businesses. There's a process where applicants will apply, and it will be vetted. And if they're successful in terms of getting the funds, then they should be able to move forward with the business, or already the business that's already established, to give them that boost that they need to maybe increase efficiencies or cut costs and be more productive in the business. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity to help businesses in the community, and I'm totally in support. And I don't think we should cap what type of businesses we should allow to apply for it, because I believe that businesses, like anything else in life, sometimes are successful based on the will and determination and the drive of the person behind them. I'll say this, and I say this often, and it's the truth. A lot of people want to do things because want shows up in conversation. Expectation shows up in behavior. And if you expect to be successful, you move in that manner and you work that way. There's a lot of people that I know right now sitting at home that want to be successful. They want to do all these great things, but that want never leaves the couch or the bed or the room. And those who expect it, and those who are going after it, and those who are getting it are the ones who are acting and behaving in the manner and going after it. Greatest quote I ever heard is, the best way to change your body is you stand in front of that mirror, you take one foot, put it in front of the other, and walk to the gym, right? So you expect to change, you do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores.
Sir, this question's for you. What's your completion rate?
It's pretty high. I mean, it depends on how you define completion. For us, we work with businesses where they are. Some businesses require a lot of support and a lot of services, and so they'll participate in more activities than others. But in terms of the training classes, I would venture that our completion rate is over 80% of folks that start the classes complete them. The classes are offered continuously, so we try to respect the fact that business owners, particularly small business owners, are extremely busy. So we offer lots of opportunities for folks to take or retake classes as they need to complete the program. But those folks that are, it's about capital readiness, and for us, the businesses that are in the program understand that in order to have access to capital, they have to complete.
And how do you measure success? What to you is, in a year down the road, we put 40 businesses through this program. What would a successful business look like from your standpoint? Well,
I think the main thing that we would look at initially is that they are capital ready, that at the end of the program they're able to qualify for a loan that they weren't able to qualify for when they started. And as a lender, our measure of success is that they are paying as agreed. And so we work with businesses. We've got a special program we call a Credit Builder Loan, where we'll give the businesses a loan for 12 months, and we pair that with a lot of one-on-one technical assistance and consulting support and check-ins to make sure that they are proceeding in accordance with their projections.
Excellent. From first staff, I should say, I come from education. I spent 5 years at Palm Beach State. As I'm thinking about this, wouldn't it be nice if all 40 would create a cohort that go through this program over the next year to have each other for support, and we commemorate their success a year down the road, sort of with a graduation of some sort of certification. That way it builds, it continues the momentum. We have 40 successful businesses that go through this, and I would volunteer to be at that ceremony, so, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Madam Mayor,
Sure, Commissioner Powell.
just point of reference, Commissioner Flores, remember, if we up the ante with regard to up to $20,000, there may not be 40 businesses that would get the funding.
I think it's 40 for the training class, sorry.
Point well taken.
We put 40,000 aside, yes, for trainings. 140, excuse me.
Yes, ma'am, 140.
We put 140 aside for the training. We put 400 aside for the loan, and then the residual, the rest is something that we haven't discussed yet.
Outreach. Yes.
Administrator Abruzzo, your light is on. Did you have anything you wanted to add? Commissioner Weiss.
Just to put a bow on this issue of whether or not they should be contributing, I believe they should contribute to the cost. I think it should be based on their financials. I also believe that simply because they're small doesn't mean that they're not ability to bring in a lot of revenue and potentially a large profit. Just because you're a small business doesn't mean that the world is not your oyster as well. So I think it should be based in I would just give staff direction to sort it out, but I would say somewhere between $100 and $500 that they contribute.
I would agree. Sir, you can have a seat. If we have
Thank
any
you.
more questions, we'll bring you back up. Vice Mayor.
He had a card in too, does he want to?
Vice Mayor.
Madam Mayor, I agree with Commissioner Flores. I like the idea of having more of a flat $100 fee. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't want this being something that fluctuates or we have to dig into again. Let's keep this simple. Keep it at $100 if they're going to contribute. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, would you all, board, would you mind if it's an application fee, something of that sort?
Well, isn't this the fee for
For the 35?
The
Right,
training.
the 35. So that portion, if we accept them into the program, almost like an early on application fee, which goes toward the 3,500?
Hold on.
No,
An acceptance
please go
fee?
ahead. I want to hear what Commissioner Sachs has to say.
Commissioner Sachs.
I don't want to call it an application fee because that means that we're charging them for administration. I want to call it an initiation or something that shows exactly what they're paying for. What they're paying for is the opportunity to have training and to have an opportunity to partake in the American business community. So we're not taking that $100 and giving it to the county for our application. This is as, and I think possibly that's what the Vice Mayor was talking about.
Right, and question, because that made me think, is this optional, this training and this fee, correct? Yes?
The training is optional. It is not a mandatory component of participation in the other program.
Just making sure. Thank you.
I think there needs to be a fee. There needs to be some buy-in. There needs to be some skin in the game. I don't necessarily agree with just a minimum of $100, especially if, you know, your business of 5 is worthy of $1 million or worthy of, 25,000. I think there should be a sliding scale based on what the projections are up to a certain point of, say, I think Commissioner Weiss said $500. We're trying to help, but there needs to be skin in the game, and people need to be able to complete the program, but know that this is something that they've contributed to. But this is a separate program from the loan program. We're hoping that the folks that go through the Grow America will take advantage of the Grow America financial program where they can borrow money from them, because that money doesn't come back to the county. If the folks that partake in the loan program, that money continues to come back to the county and continues to go back out. This $140,000, when it's gone, it's gone. The other $400,000 just continues. And so let's cover the third portion of this, and then we'll give you direction.
And so the last portion, as Carlos mentioned, outreach and marketing dollars again, so we can continue to promote the programs, this program, or other programs throughout the Department of Housing and Economic Development.
All right. So we have 3 components here. And the first component is obviously the loan component. And I don't think, I think the discussion, if you want to go back to the loan component slide, that'd be great. So the provides a minimum of 40,000 loans will change because I think the board's, the feeling from the board is up to $20,000 per loan. I think Commissioner Powell wanted to, did you want a minimum, Commissioner Powell? Okay. I thought that's what I heard. I think the words up to are very important because if someone has a piece of equipment that's $5,000, they don't need to come for 10. The interest rates are great. The fact that it's revolving and this will, the question that will be worked out if this is a 5-year loan, then in 5 years from now, we're back here talking about it again. So I don't think it's is there no prepayment if someone decides they want to pay it back early. And then we can revisit that pot of money as we go forward. And obviously that pot of money hopefully will grow because there's also interest that's being collected. So maybe this 400,000 become 5 and grow and grow and grow, which would be ideal for all of us. Joelle, you're squinting. Did you get that?
When I was making my comments earlier, I asked if the program was going to continue to be revolving, meaning over the next year, the interest and the principal that we collect back, if we would put it back out on the street next year rather than wait for the end of the program, the 5-year, I would be more inclined to go with that revolving door where we utilize whatever money, principal, and interest we collect over the first year and put it back out on the street. That way, we don't have money sitting in the bank where we could actually be helping another business. So I don't know if you guys would be open to that.
That would be if they prepay early.
I mean, they're going to make payments every month, right?
Yes, sir.
So we're going
Yes.
to be collecting on that. I mean, I don't think day one we're going to be able to give it back out on the street, but maybe after a year we have a little bit of money that we can start giving out a few more loans.
We can actually, what you could probably do is do an annual review and see how much money we have, so then we can give it back out at that time.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so this would be something, the addition to this would be, we would like an annual report of the status. Joelle, I think that answers your question. Okay. The second was go to the next slide, please. The partnership with Grow America. So I guess the only question here is, what do we want to see as a fee? Do we want to see a minimum of 100, a maximum of 500 with a sliding scale based on, now I realize that's a little bit more work on you all, but I think from a allocation standpoint, it gives us actually a little bit more time to give out more dollars if there's a sliding scale and if some folks are going up to the 500. And that's a lot of skin in the game, so you know they'll be successful and they will really invest in it. So if it's not an inordinate amount of time for staff, I think bring back to us a sliding scale of how you figure that would be, and we'll discuss it at that point. And I do see a maximum of 500, but I don't see any lights on, so I'm thinking everybody's okay with that.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Flores had mentioned something earlier. I thought about if they make it through the program, we refund it. Is that a consideration, or is it? Okay. Okay.
No, I don't think so, because we're putting 500,000, over 500,000 back into the community, and hopefully 400,000 of that is going to grow into loans. So I don't think this is a forgiveness program.
Okay.
And the residual amount of the 48,000, if you don't have to spend all of the 48,000, we can move it into loan dollars.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that amenable to the board? So are you looking for direction or a motion?
We're looking for both. You've given us direction. I guess at this point, we'll be seeking a motion.
May I get a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move to.
Oh, I apologize. We have one
It's
card.
on 5C.
Thank you.
Mr. Joseph Gray?
Thank you, sir.
You good?
We appreciate
All
your
right.
being here today. And that we're good. So I have a motion from the Vice Mayor. Do I have a second? I have a second from Commissioner Weiss. All in favor? All opposed? Commissioner Sachs is voting yes from her coffee. That will be 6-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, we're going to add getting certified from the Office of Small Business, right?
We will add getting certified if it's a business that is eligible for certification. Like a restaurant, we don't certify those businesses. So anything that does, any business that can potentially do business with Palm Beach County can get certified.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to Palm Tran.
Are we making that a requirement of the law? Are we making it a requirement that they get certified? For training?
Mayor, if I can also respond to that. So there's 6 sessions provided by Grow America. We were going to provide one to take them through our certification process, as well as explain to them all of the small business options throughout the county.
Palm Tran. We're
Thank
so
you.
excited.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So are we. We appreciate the opportunity to come back to you. This is an item after an opportunity to spend some time with the board a couple of months ago. You had requested some specific changes with the ITN, and based on your direction, we are coming back to you today with a few changes from what you saw last time in the ITN, specifically in the area of booking, dispatching, and scheduling, as well as in the area of related software that comes with that. So you asked us to include that concurrently with this so that firms and vendors that were going to bid on this included and could include portions of the scheduling booking as that. Also, you asked us to come back with some changes to how we score this on the pricing side. There was concern that we were weighted a little too heavily on the pricing, so we made some adjustments on that as well. We have a very brief presentation if you would like for us, or if you would rather ask us some specific questions about that, we can go directly to some of those pages with those changes to share some of that with you on the PowerPoint. So,
Vice
at
Mayor
your pleasure.
Baxter.
Madam Mayor, I don't require a presentation. If anyone else doesn't, I would be happy to move this item.
Commissioner Powell, your light is on.
Thank you. I do have a question with regard to this application, this process. In here, there's a line for the invitation to negotiate that indicates this will include the operations of Palm Trans connection, scheduling, and dispatching functions. I think we need to figure out how exactly to make that work, because if you think about it, if you have 2 companies that move forward and a call comes in, are you expecting the competitors to make sure that the calls, wouldn't it be, how does it work where the competitors would make sure that the calls get to the right entity in a timely fashion? Is that something that we really should think about? Is that something that we want to give away? And in addition to that, when we talk about the software, we had this conversation yesterday, Todd, with regard to software and the software that we're currently using being outdated. We need to have a conversation in terms of what to do about software. And with regard to the software, who controls it? I don't think it would be in our best interest to allow the companies to be in control of the software, because they would then have the data that the county should more than likely control, because when these contracts go out again, it should be in the hands of us or the county to be able to know where the data is, who's got the data. So these are real important questions that I would like answered and figured out before we move forward.
Madam Mayor, if I can start with a couple of those, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ivan and Ron to fill in on some of the other items. So specific to the data, So written into the ITN, we draft in there specifically that we, Palm Beach County, PalmTran, owns that data. That is our data, and we maintain the ownership of that. We will, with whatever scheduling that we would do under this proposal, the software would be a software that would be part of the bid process, and that would be selected based on some of the criteria and the proposals we get. But we would have direct access into whatever that software is as PalmTran to be able to real-time take that data, and there will also be provisions in there that will prohibit and restrict any of our vendors from utilizing that data outside of their work for PalmTran paratransit connection. So I want to make that a very clear point, because I know that that's a concern of a few members of the board, and that's come up in conversations over the last month or so when we've spoken about this. I can pause there if you have a follow-up on that, sir.
So is there a difference between access and ownership, right? Because who would own it? See, if we have access, but they own it, and we prohibit them from any manipulation, that's different from us owning. And then think about if they have access to it, if they have ownership, then would we get a surcharge? Would the county be charged more because they own it and they would put that in their bid, as opposed to us owning it and it costs us more?
Yeah.
It costs us less. And we give them access.
So, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, County Administrator, thank you for those are very good questions. I have to give you a little background, and that is that I have worked with multiple transit systems, and I have been managing paratransit services for some time. And the reason why I give you that information is that I have worked in transit systems that either do both. They either own the software, but also those that share the software with the vendor. And of course, there are parameters in place that you can have full access to the software technologies. But I guess what is very important here is that the information that will go to the vendor is going to be restricted to the type of location where the person lives at. The person, it's being picked up, a drop-off from the oversight compliance part of it. We plan to continue to maintain the eligibility requirement, all of the critical data to follow, obviously, HIPAA compliance. So the eligibility part of it, that information will not go out to any of the vendors. The simple information that will go out to the vendor will be related to the type of transportation they will provide. If there are any fares, whether the person needs a wheelchair or the type of transportation that they need. And I will probably step back a little bit to allow Ron, who has managed this software, and we currently have some of those parameters in place to talk briefly about it, if you would allow me to do so. Okay.
And thank you, Ivan. Ron Jones, the Senior Manager of PalmTran Connection. And not to repeat what Ivan said, I agree, but the software component is critical, obviously, to the operation. We do feel like our current software, with the deficiencies in that we're experiencing, moving to a new platform sooner than later, would hugely benefit the program as far as efficiencies, cost savings, and our ability to provide the service. But having the software presented and owned by the vendors when they bring that has benefits too. It's going to take a lot of management of the software once we get that up and running. And the concern would be if we separate the software from the call center vendor, then we would have conflicts as far as what we think is the best management of that software and allowing the vendor to manage the software. And I know I haven't directly given you a definitive yes or no, just because there's options either way.
Follow up. You just said something. The call center and the separation. So if we have people currently working in the call center with the software we manage right now, right? And now we are putting it in the hands of the vendor to own and operate. Those individuals who we have working at the call center, what happens to them? Do they lose their job, or do they now they become independent agents or contractors who can go and contract with these vendors. And if that's the case, you know, and I'm just thinking out loud, as if I were working at a call center and I'm in FRS, does my FRS stop and I go work for the vendor who presumably doesn't get the same benefits as the county, but now they're in private? Now I got some different questions. What happens?
If I may answer that question, we do have approximately 40 positions that would be affected by this decision. So in situation where you privatize a segment of your operation, in this case, the dispatching or the call center involves the booking of trips or scheduling trips, the dispatching, and obviously making reservations. So we're looking at close to 40 positions that would be privatized. With that said, we will work closely with the vendors to ensure that there's a proper transition and they take in consideration the skill set that is already in place and the expertise and experience that our staff have to make sure that they are properly secure employment, and they're not. And we also look at what opportunities we have in-house to be able to transition some of those staff members who have been there, some of them for some time. But it's a really good question to ask.
But if we own the tool or the software, would those 40 individuals, if we owned and operated, because you indicated we have the call center, we're operating dispatch and call, if we owned it and it's new software, obviously there'd be some upgrades. What happens to the 40 individuals? Is it a reduced number that would?
The way that the direction that we received last time from the board was to include in the ITN the operation of the scheduling a dispatch, which basically means your reservation, your dispatchers, and your scheduling. Whether we own the software or they own the software, that means they will still we will still be transitioning those 40 individuals onto the new vendor.
And one thing I can add to that as well, as we, just on the operation side, where we have two vendors today, for example, that operate the service, if there's a transition from any of our existing vendors to another vendor, we work very closely with any new vendors to transition any of those employees to make sure that there is a seamless transition if that is what some of those employees would like to do in those circumstances. And we've done that in the past, so it would work in a similar fashion. Different because we're going from in-house to a contract, but we still work pretty closely in some of that transition with all of those employees.
Okay. Any more questions, Commissioner Powell?
No.
Commissioner Flores.
Commissioner Powell, I thank you for these questions because a lot of these questions are the same ones that I posed yesterday to staff. To me, this particular matter at hand is extremely important and critical to the county. I think we invest a lot of resources into this particular paratransit program, and I want it to be successful. I want it to be efficient, and I want to provide, state-of-the-art, world-class experience for our ridership. And I think we can do that. How we get there is the key component that we're discussing right now. One of the items that I want to talk about is redundancy in the program. I understand when we went out previously, one of the operators failed, and we went back to 2. I would like to see something similar because you don't know what could happen in this timeline moving forward. So I know it says a minimum of 2. I would like to see this maybe go back to 3 in case, and because I think that provides redundancy. If one of the operators, for whatever reason, can't meet its requirements, then we have 2 operators to go to. Whereas if we only have 2 and 1 fails, then we only have 1 to pick up the entire county. It's a very large county. So I would like to see some redundancy. When we talk about data, that was one of my biggest questions yesterday. Who is going to own the data? And to me, we have to own the data. And what I'm talking about is the raw data, that we have access to the software and that we can see exactly what's happening. Because what happens with data is you can make it mean whatever you want it to mean. You can shift things around. And I know the city of West Palm is currently having a major issue with one of their transit providers because West Palm does not own the data and they're only given reports. Correct. So I don't want to be in the same circumstances where we don't own the data and that we have to beg and plead to get reports. So we brought this up last time. The conversation is, hey, let's look at this. But we went from let's look to like almost going to privatizing the scheduling. And I don't know that we have made that commitment here. I would like us to really do a cost comparison to see which one is truly more cost effective and convenient for everyone. Because we're talking about 40 employees right now. And what we're saying is, hey, they're going to go do the same job over there. So why couldn't they do it for us? And we have complete oversight into the program, making sure that everybody's playing fairly and no provider has unfair advantage on this program. Because let me tell you, if I have my hand in the cookie jar, I might be, tempted to take a larger fair share of the ridership because I would get paid on that, right? So we want to make sure that we have complete oversight on this program, that is effective, that is efficient. Now, if we do want to explore that opportunity of, sending scheduling out, it should be a separate invitation for negotiation where we see exactly what they're proposing on how they're going to do the scheduling. And, I purchased softwares before from Palm Beach State and government. Usually, nonprofit and governmental entities usually get a better rate on software than private companies. Are we laughing? I don't laugh when you speak. I mean, have some common courtesy, seriously. But yeah, so we should do a comparison, a cost comparison, which one would be more cost effective for the county? Whether we privatize it because because of the volume of licensures they have, they would get a better rate, or whether we would get the better rate. But at the end of the day, I think we should be the ones controlling the data and making sure that we are able to make decisions based on raw data. So thank you so much.
So, Madam Mayor, just 2 quick comments. One, we share your same philosophy in terms of the data and owning the data. So it is our intent that we own that data and we have unfettered access to that to be able to look at raw data and make some of those analyses through the way that we've set this up. Second, we have set up this so that the board has the utmost flexibility in terms of number of providers. So, at least 2. You can select everyone that applies if you want. I probably wouldn't recommend that, but you have the flexibility in terms of that when we review this particular ITN. And we can get additional data for you if you need on some of the cost comparisons of what it would be to, operate in-house versus out-of-house.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple things. Does anyone own the software or do they own the license agreements?
Correct. So the major softwares that are available there for transit, the most, proficient or effective systems out there, they're completely privately owned, not necessarily by any vendor. Our current 2 vendors that we use, and the major vendors that we have, they use a variety of different softwares and different settings. So when someone comes in, they're going to come with the software that is that has been vetted. Most of the vendors don't have the technology nor the staffing to be able to upgrade and maintain the software that is necessary for transit systems. So you're looking at a separate.
Are you saying that we do?
Pardon me? No, our current system needs to be optimized. So before, we were directed to. No, we don't.
No, who owns the software? That's, I think the question was, is it proprietary or is it licensed?
It will be owned by the vendor. We would have a license to be able to utilize the software. And there's a maintenance piece that usually is included in every single software that I have used in transit.
We do license it on an annual basis.
But we, the county, usually have one of two options. We can either try to create a software that is very specific to our individual needs, or we have to buy a license from someone else. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Pretty much, yes.
And so how would this be any different?
The difference here would be that the vendor, the way that the ITN is written, will be providing the software. We will have full access of the software. We'll have full ownership of the data that is in it.
Would the short answer be it's not different? It's very similar to how we would operate with other softwares throughout other departments in this county?
I would say that's a fair assessment, yes.
Thank you. And also, have we found that government, when we purchase anything, is less expensive? I know I'm new to this, but I haven't found that to be the case. Have you?
In terms of when we purchase things
Correct.
directly, is it less expensive than somebody else purchases it?
Correct. Software specifically.
Yeah, software specifically. I don't know that I can answer that question. I don't know. I have to defer to ISS.
Todd,
on
how
that.
long have you been in this county?
27 years.
And you don't want to give an opinion on this?
No, I'm not familiar with sort of the rate structures on those transactions. Without seeing them, I don't want to give you an answer that I'm wrong.
All right, thank you.
I apologize.
Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. You answered the question, but just to put on the record, we will own the data. That'll be a requirement of anything that I would be willing to approve. Any personal identifying information will not be available to be shared with anybody and would hopefully be destroyed at whenever no longer needed. So, and want to make sure we have a policy to do that. As you were talking about the booking and dispatch, I'm hopeful this will all be automated. The booking side of it, obviously, people need to take the calls, record the information. However, hopefully somebody's also looking at using some other types of technology to help with that, whether they can do it online from a phone or whatever. I think that, folks that are dealing with mobility issues not necessarily have issues in being able to use technology, for some of them anyways. I think the Vice Mayor went over the licensing of the software. Clearly this is not something we should be owning, building, maintaining. It's beyond what our mission is, which is to serve the public as opposed to creating software. There are people who do this very well, and so I'm sure there's packages that are available for that. But the licensing, but I would look in asset legal, look at those licenses, because the terms and conditions in there make sure that that ownership stays with the county and does not go to whatever vendor is creating this software, because I would say that probably most of them, they do own the data, and we don't. And so we want to, going forward, that all those terms and conditions be reviewed and make sure that the ownership stays with us. So those are my points to add.
Thank you. Commissioner Sacks, and then Commissioner Powell.
Thank you so much. I think that you're doing a great job running the farm track. I just want to make sure, because I've read everything and I don't see any iteration of regarding the software of the ownership. I cannot imagine that a government entity would share information taken in by a government entity with any private company. So we own the information that we get. Is that correct, gentlemen?
Yes.
Okay. So we own the software, we own everything with regard to information that we get on people's addresses, where they're being picked up, whether they're disabled. All of that is completely owned by the government.
So just one clarification, we do share the information shared because when you have folks that are running to pick up somebody from point A to point B, they need to know who they're picking up, where they're picking up from, and where they're taking them. So that information is part of that exchange that occurs, even today, what we do.
With a driver, for example.
With a driver.
The driver will know he's going to pick up Sue Smith, who is blind, at
Yes.
this address.
Yes.
That is not public at all.
It is
Is that correct?
That's correct.
It is
I
not.
just want to be sure.
Yes.
Okay, good. So we own the information. Obviously, the pickup people are employees of ours,
They are contracted employees of ours.
contracted employees, okay. So because it would be horrendous to think that personal information would be out there in the public domain. So I'm perfectly happy with what's going on, and I remember when y'all helped me with Kings Point folks, as well as, personal with my daughter at JARC to take her to work and back. So it's very good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple things. Currently, we own and maintain the software. Am I right?
Yes. The
Correct.
Trapeze software is our
Correct.
current
We do.
software that we have.
Which we've indicated is out of date. So we wouldn't, if we move forward, we wouldn't necessarily be creating a new software because there are softwares available now. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Yes, sir.
I want to follow up with what Commissioner Flores said earlier. When he indicated that it would be cheaper for the county to own it, and I think I know what you're getting to, right? So if we talk about the software, let's say Trapeze, because that's the software we already use. If someone else, 2 companies, were licensed out with Trapeze, wouldn't they charge us, because they're purchasing Trapeze, would they charge us the same exact amount that they're paying, or would they upcharge it to us since we would be accessing it?
So the answer to that is anything that they absorb, cost for it, we will be reimbursing them for the cost, whether there is provision of transportation, field service operations, staffing personnel. The advantages that we have is now we have a lease facility, so would hopefully, or for the most part, optimize the way we manage the services. But yes, we will be reimbursing for whatever cost if they have either lease option or they, more likely it will be some type of lease option that they will have for the software.
Right, so Mr. Maldonado, let's say they're leasing Trapeze, right? And they're paying, I'm just throwing numbers, they're paying $1,600 a month for it. We're reimbursing them. Are we reimbursing them at the $1,600 a month rate? Or are we reimbursing them at the amount that they've charged us, which let's say would be $1,800 a month? Would we just say, no, you guys are paying $1,600, we're going to pay what you paid?
Part of the bid process, and we're going out to the ITN now, is that they provide to us and they will itemize what some of those numbers are. The ITN that we have, when we narrow that down, we have the ability to negotiate on some of those components, particularly on the pricing pieces of it. So we have that option if we see things that look like, it's not within line of where we think it should be, we have the ability to do that throughout this process to get to where we think that something needs to be. But typically, it would mostly be a pass-through cost on that specifically, and that's what we would look at in that particular process. But again, we also have the ability to negotiate sort of when we get towards the end of the process and when we have multiple firms that we're looking at.
Okay. And I think, Commissioner Flores, you might have heard something that I think you hit on something that I thought I understood too, that we would provide the opportunity for these companies to bid and show us, I would think separately, what it would be the cost of dispatch and the cost of the call center and the cost included in terms of their bid. But I do believe that they would put that in their bid, not necessarily meaning that we have to go with their bid. I think we should have a cost comparison as to what it would cost us as a county. Now, in addition to that, if we're getting new software, with new efficiencies, there still may be some people who may not be needed. If you're updating the technology and the software, it may cut down on the number of people we need. But we should know that internally, and we should also provide what it would cost for us to keep it internally as well. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, I mean, to your point, technology does create opportunities that, when it comes to the human resource side of it, technology has in the past, replaced some of that. But we do think that our teams that we have here, there is going to be need for them, and particularly on both our side, on PalmTrans side, as well as our contractor side. The one thing that I would share with you on the oversight of this, and to Commissioner Flores' point, where you look at case studies, and we've looked at case studies of where things have gone well and where they've not gone well. In cases where they haven't gone well, in a lot of those cases, the properties have sort of disowned maybe the program and just completely turned it over. I think, we have a lot of ownership when it comes to PalmTran and Paraconnection and some of the things that we're doing. So it is contingent upon us on the management and the supervisory side to make sure that that oversight is in place. We plan to have strong oversight in place and maintain that on the PalmTran side of the ledger. And I think where you find success in programs like this, where this has been transitioned, that's been the defining factor in some of the good and smooth transitions to ones that maybe didn't work out as well.
Todd, you've been here a long time and you've been through this process before.
Yeah.
Have you had opportunities where we've done this process in terms of the paratransit and the transition was not so smooth? And what was that like, and what were the differences back then as opposed to now? Because most of us weren't here when there were a bad transition to paratransit, that there were some failures. And when was that? So
I've been here when every seat in this room behind us was filled with people who were not happy with the way that paratransit was going. I think, a testament to our staff right now, you haven't seen that. You've had a lot of folks that have been here over the course of the last years who've been very supportive, very appreciative of what we've done. This board has made some recommendations too that we're putting in place in January that are going to help us on the transition and on the efficiency side of this, which we are working very closely for that mid-January start date when we transition to that to make sure that's smooth. I think, our staff that we have today is extremely committed to this process. They're extremely committed to the integrity of the service that we provide and the compassion to the individuals that we serve and providing that same level of compassion to them. But Commissioner, yes, I've been here when paratransit was not going very well, when the board, decided to completely change directions. I've been here when we've transitioned from, vendors to other vendors because it wasn't going well. We have two very good vendors right now that happen to be doing a very good job. And so that's worked well. And there are a lot of other vendors out there that we know have got very good reputations who are going to put their name in the hat, we expect, in this process. But I think we're at a good place. But I also think that there are improvements that we need to do in PalmTran to make it more efficient, make it more cost-effective, and sort of bring it to that next level on the efficiency side. And technology is one of those areas where I think we've been sort of lagging behind in, And some of this new technology is going to help us sort of get past some of those hurdles on the efficiency side of how we schedule individuals to ride in Palm Beach County.
Thank you. Any more comments, Commissioner Powell?
Just to be clear, in this invitation to negotiate, there is going to be a cost comparison with the county and these entities that apply as well for the dispatch. And I just want to be clear that that's what we're doing. Am I right or wrong?
Is that, actually, I'm looking at Attorney Kaufman. Is there a legality standpoint for this?
No, absolutely not. It's actually very customary to require the vendors, when they're submitting, to provide you with a cost-benefit analysis themselves, and that they would bid individually on each component of a software system, and that we have the option to pick and select at that time which components we want to do. So we may or may not determine at that time we want them to take dispatch, or we don't. It depends on how the ITN is written.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell, does that help?
That was a great explanation from the attorney, but I need to know from the team, is that because that's going to determine whether I'm a yes or no, is that what we're doing? If that's not what we're doing, it's a no for me. If it is what we're doing, then it's a yes. I just need to know that.
What we have the ability to do in this ITN is to request an itemization of the costs that vendors are providing to us, of what their costs are going to be to operate this service. We're going to be able to compare those costs to each vendor, as well as to how we operate internally. And ultimately, this board will have the ultimate authority to make that determination, and will be able to recommend to you whether or not this is the best path forward or not in those circumstances.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores.
As a follow-up to that, Todd, so being a paratransit provider will be one item that they're going to be providing their invitation to negotiate the proposal, and then a separate, if they're interested in becoming the scheduler, the software provider, they'll have a separate submittal.
It will be wrapped into it.
So currently, we have 2 or more, and we have the option by doing that to broker with 2 service delivery providers, the ones that are picking people up and dropping them off, and then having a third vendor that is independent, so it doesn't create any conflict of I'm taking more trips or assigning more trips to me and not to you, having a third vendor. But I think from Mr. Von Laren's point of view, that, and of course we have legal here who could probably give us some advice of that, if we recognize that the cost analysis and the itemized listing of costing doesn't make any sense, we can always come back to you and say, let's move forward with the 2 vendors for the service delivery, and this probably might not be a good choice for the scheduling piece of it.
I guess from my standpoint, and if I heard from Commissioner Powell correctly, we would like this to be 2 separate opportunities to negotiate. One is to become a paratransit provider, which we currently have 2, and then another one to become that scheduling component. And then my follow-up question to that is, who ultimately picks the software? Because I would love something that's industry-leading software. Meaning, once we give them, we select them, are they the ones that are going to select the software that they want, or are we going to have a say into what software we are going to be moving forward with? Because if they have a proprietary software that they use internally and they leave, we're not happy with their service halfway through, what happens with that software? So there are like many different questions here. We've now beholden to that provider because they own that software, and we're not happy with their service. So,
Can I ask Mr. Matumba to answer specifics to the legality and how we structure that?
Good morning. I wanted to make one thing clear. The biggest advantage with doing an ITN is you have the most amount of flexibility about how you structure the package of options that vendors should bid on. If the board's intention is to have separate scheduling work that vendors providing transportation should not apply for, you could still do that within one ITN. However, because ITNs are all about flexibility, if you wanted to completely separate it into two ITNs, you could do that too. But if you wanted to make sure that there's separate packages of work that a vendor could apply for to provide the service, but that would disqualify them from the scheduling, you could lay that out in the same ITN. ITNs are to provide you flexibility to see what an entire package gives you in terms of value for the services. Unlike invitation for bid or an RFP, which tend to focus on price and what cost are you coming under as the provider, an ITN basically gives you full freedom for what criteria to use.
So I'm okay with that, as long as we can sort of like a la carte pick which one we're gonna do for provider A, B, C, and then who's gonna do the scheduling. If we can do that through this process and one process, I'm open to that, as long as we get to select who it is. Who is gonna pick the software? Are we, the county, gonna have input into which software we go with? Or are we gonna, whoever we pick, it's whatever provider they want?
That would be a choice for this board. You would have to specify if you want to have restrictions for what software comes with which package of work people are bidding on. You could do it either way in an ITN because ultimately the key is flexibility. If this board wants to say, you know, Palmtran is going to go with Trapeze products, you will be using Trapeze products if you're bidding on this in the provision of services. You could do that. Or you could say interested providers should provide us enough detail for who your software is that you use. How do you think this would offer the county best value based on what your software provider is promising to give you guys?
Okay. Yeah, I want to have some input into the software. I mean, I don't know anything about these softwares, so I'm going to be looking for industry leaders to be the ones sort of help us make that determination. But I think we should have, if we're going to make an investment, we should have the latest software, the best of the best, make sure that this becomes efficient and that so if we pick someone and you're going to use Trapeze, which is what we currently have,
Right.
which what I understand is we probably don't want to use anymore,
Right.
then that's not, you know what I mean? I don't want to go back 2 steps. And then the last thing I want to touch on is the rollout and the timeline. One of the things that I heard a little hesitation from some of these providers is rolling everything out at once. So I want to make sure that when we do this, we roll it out where, you know, they get time to adjust and then we roll out the software, or we roll out the software and then we bring them on board, something along those lines, so that we don't have everything brand new on day one. Does that make sense? So that there's not, we want to make sure that the experience and that we don't leave anybody behind and everything goes according to plan.
That is actually our plan, Commissioner, was to actually have the actual service delivery part of it be started. The segment of obviously bringing in software requires training. It requires, you know, making sure that it get tested accordingly in production, in the testing environment. So obviously that we're looking at that being rolled out about 3 months after we begin the operational side of it. Yes, sir.
You're welcome. Vice Mayor Baxter, can you bring it home?
I'm hoping. So, a lot of great conversation today by the board, and thank you, staff, for what you've done so far. I haven't heard really any changes, just a lot of information back and forth to what has been presented in the agenda. So I'm going to move it, but I'm also going to ask for some additional, because I did think what Commissioner Powell and Commissioner Flores was saying, you know, about pricing and differentiation and different seeing what that looks like. But in addition to that, I mean, if we really want to take a good look at this and make it as efficient as possible for the residents, I would also like, with the support of my board, to give direction to do a study on the full privatization of this as well. Are we going to save money and make it more efficient that way? Or is it going to be more cost effective to keep it in-house? But we'd only know that if we did a study and really analyze that. So unless there's any objection, I would like to the board support. I mean, it just falls in line with giving with dollars, you know, seeing what is the best for our residents. And I think
You're
that's
talking
important.
specifically paratransit service.
Palm Tran in general, I think. And then, but I am going to, it says staff request board approval to release an invitation to negotiate. So I move that we do this.
I have a motion and a second, and thank you, Vice Mayor, because I was going to suggest the same thing. I would like to see the whole thing privatized. I think that would save us a bunch of money. We spend way too much in the way of taxpayer dollars on this program, and I realize that, you know, a lot of it is matching grants, but if we can become more efficient and have a better coverage model, that would be fabulous. So we have a motion and a second. There are 5 of us. Commissioner Flores? He says yes. All in favor? All opposed? See that motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Administrator Bruso, did you have a comment on E1, which is the intergovernment affairs?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Staff is going to recommend for a deferral based upon a few exciting announcements, Madam Mayor. We have Ryan Hannock, who has accepted a post recently that is U.S. Senator Scott's regional director, will be heading our department. Also, we have some external lobbyists who we are just wrapping up their contracts. Ballard Partners has agreed to take us on both federally and state, and Capital City Consulting, which is Nick I. Rossi. We will have that in place by the workshop. If we can defer this to the workshop, would be much appreciated, Mayor.
Do we need a motion for that, Madam Attorney?
Okay, we're moving on. Thank you very much. All right, we are at the board appointment section of our agenda, and I will start with Commissioner Powell. Do you have any board appointments this month? Or I should say this meeting? Okay, Commissioner Weiss?
No appointments.
Vice Mayor?
No appointments.
Commissioner Flores? Any appointments? Commissioner Sacks, any appointments? No. Okay. So we will move on from board appointments. We will go to staff comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Some exciting announcements. First and foremost, wanted to recognize some of our incredible staff. David Ricks was awarded the Florida Engineers Society Engineer of the Year Award. And I know he had to leave for some items, for some work, but I wanted to mention that. As well as Ron Rice was awarded the IFAS Extension Professional of the Year. And then I know Jennifer Cirillo in Parks has been recognized several times. However, Jennifer just picked up the actual trophy for the CAPRA NRPA Award, which, by the way, only 1% to 2% of park services nationwide receive. They have to go through 150 rigorous tests, if you will, or different items within their department. So it is truly my pleasure and honor to recognize Jennifer in Parks. And in a bittersweet part of my comments, I did want to mention our longtime Deputy Administrator, Tammy Fields, has announced her retirement to staff in August. But doing so, she's actually received 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards over the past month. I did want to recognize, with your indulgence, Mayor, Tammy, we also have some friends with us today that she wants to mention. Tammy, if you want.
I wasn't expecting that, but yes, it's been my pleasure. I've worked with the county for 36 years, and so August will be the end of my 37th, and coinciding with turning 65, so I'll be ready to retire at that point in time. was very honored this past week to get the Nonprofits First Lifetime Achievement Award. And then along with Commissioner Powell and a few other county employees received the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award last month. So I was very honored for that. Just want to recognize young people in the audience. These are young people from Faith's Place as well.
But Tammy, before you walk away, you want to explain what that is? Or would you like to have someone come up and explain?
Well, I have a feeling that Commissioner Powell may have some comments, but Faith Place is going to be our owner-operator out at the Senator McBernard in Grand Marcy Park. And so they will be running the daycare and school programs at Grand Marcy Park, and we're happy to have them as a vendor. I believe that there's another issue that is coming up, though.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioner, Administrator Abruzzo? County Attorney? Any comments? Okay. Does anyone have board direction that they would like to bring up?
Yes, Madam Mayor. With the support of my board, I'd like to give direction to draft a letter of support for Palm Beach International Raceway to remain a racetrack, to have it become a racetrack once again. Just saying that we support that, because as we know previously, that use was removed. I just want anyone who is potentially looking at this property to know that we, the board, support it being a racetrack.
But we can't tell them they have to be a racetrack
Correct. We
because
can't
we're
tell
not
them they
allowed
have
to tell
to.
private property owners what they can do. But the letter is to say if there's anybody out there that's interested in continuing this on as a racetrack, we would support that.
If it's zoning, then we can't do that, can we?
We're not changing anything. We're just saying.
But if we're saying in advance what we're going to decide?
We're not,
No.
we can't commit.
We're not committing, we're just saying that we've said it already publicly that we would support a racetrack being there again. We've already done that publicly. This is just putting it in a letter form saying we support a racetrack being there. It always has been there.
I think that the devil's in the details. If we're just saying that we like the idea of a racetrack there,
Yep,
I don't see
that's
any
simple.
problem with that.
I think you're okay with that.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Powell.
I like that idea, but me personally, as a land use planner, I'm not going to be a part of the board on that decision. I'm just going to be separate from that because I can't ethically take that role. So as a planner, as an AICP certified planner, who has not worked on the project but has worked for a company who has worked on that particular parcel of land, I'm out of that. I can't be a part of that. So I just want to go on the record of saying that, because who knows, if I'm a land use planner, if I'm not a county commissioner, there could be an opportunity in the future, not today, maybe 8 years from now, who knows, where I may have a client, and we have to discuss that at another time, but I cannot put myself in that. So I apologize, I'm not in it.
Are we allowed to do the letter with Commissioner Powell abstaining?
It's not, you would almost have to qualify the letter accordingly. So you may be better off just to do a district letter. Just have a commissioner do the letter. How do you qualify? And I think I hear what he's saying. I have no problem with it. I think he's totally appropriate. But you would you'd have to say in the letter that excluding him and explaining why. And after you go through all that, it seems to me you'd be better off just to do a letter from the district commissioner saying that I like the idea of a raceway. You can't, it's not from the board if he is not going to be able to do that.
I'm just curious now. So what would prevent Commissioner Powell, would this be any different than him voting on things or zoning in any other property or likewise?
So if I vote on an item, there's a staff analysis in front of me. What I can do for you is I can contact the American Planning Association, and I can get an opinion from the ethics officer with regard to a board decision like this. But this is not something that I'm going to do without having a formal opinion, because I do abide by a code of ethics. I am, every 2 years I have to get 32 credits to maintain my AICP and all that good stuff. So I am not going to, and I would tell people this when I was a state senator, and they would come to me hoping that I would support some land project. I couldn't do it because not only did I work for a firm, I'm certified as a planner, that I'm not going to jeopardize my professional credentials on anybody's land use decision, especially when there's times where as a professional planner, I get paid, well, I used to get paid to work on projects that deal with land use.
Are you, other than land use aside, because are you allowed to say that you would like to see a racetrack?
I will get a professional opinion. I can't make that decision right now. I can't say, as a
I'm just curious.
commissioner, I can tell you what I like, but as a planner, this is a professional, it's a professional decision that impacts, what I say and what I do.
And did we remove the recreation component when we
We
voted
removed the
this?
use of a race.
So basically what the vice mayor is asking there might have to be some qualifications to it, because this would be an invitation to someone who has the desire to put a racetrack there to go back through the process. It's not that we are saying we're going to allow a racetrack, but they would have to go back through the process, correct?
Right, they still have to go through the process, they would still have to be, it's not saying we're guaranteeing a vote, it's just saying that we're saying that we would support seeing it used as a racetrack, but that doesn't mean it's guaranteed. They might come back with some version of
No,
racing we don't.
we're not going so far as to say we support that. We have to be careful. Like I said, the devil's in the details. Do we like the idea? Sure, we like that idea. We also like the idea of warehouses.
Can we modify that then to maybe direct you to come up with a letter and have us all look at it before we agree to it or not?
Well,
That you think would meet,
Commissioner Powell's unable to do that right now.
again, but even adding that language into it, if he doesn't want to do, you could say, you said in this letter, we would have to say why he couldn't. I'm saying, come back to us with a letter.
If
Let
that's
us
the
decide.
board's, if that is what the board would like me to do, I'm happy to do that.
And we could still say, no, that's a letter we can't support, or we can. If you can come back with us with language, that would be appropriate.
It's up to the board.
I have two more lights on, Commissioner Flores and then Commissioner Sacks.
So I like the idea of having a racetrack, but signaling that we're sort of like giving that support in advance before we have to take a vote on that, because I believe we would have to put a vote on that. Am I not correct? It feels very ethically challenging. Is that the right? So to me, I would be in support of a racetrack. I don't know what could change between now and if an application ever comes forward, but putting that in writing and saying that I am in support, it feels challenging right now for me. So, because I will have to vote on this. That's why, if I wasn't voting on this, I would be like, let's do it.
I would like to ask the board another question then. Would you be in support of having staff look at a way to add that use back? Because it doesn't diminish the property value. It doesn't do anything that cause anything, but have staff look at how we could potentially add that back. And the reason I'm asking this, let me be clear, is because people who want to make this a racetrack, investors are having pause. We're not getting those dollars because that use was removed. They've said it, and so this was, nobody wants to invest $65 million plus in a property without some sort of, at least a chance, a letter, a support, some sort of, or we direct staff to add that use back. One or the,
No, I don't think you can add it back.
you can, because, so they could sue us if we're diminishing a property value by removing a use, right? That's the Burt-Harris Act. But if you're adding the potential of a use.
They don't want it.
Again, what would they sue us for?
But here's the deal.
You can't force a property owner to have a use if they
Correct.
don't want.
Here's the deal. You're talking about it would be a taking, right?
Right.
And the property right now, as far as I know, I don't have everything in front of me, but I would need to look at a staff report and know who owns the property. But my understanding is that the property is not owned by those who used to run a racetrack there. Now, whatever the property is zoned right now, I know it's up there by the Palm Beach Park of Commerce in Jupiter. It has several allowable uses that would allow that property to make a profit. That property is, I don't know the size in terms of acres, but I know it's much bigger than many properties.
Roughly 130 acres.
So it's 130 acres. By the property being rezoned right now, it has not been rendered useless if the zoning has been changed on the property and it's been I don't know if it has been. I don't have all the facts in front of me, but I will tell you that the owners of the property now, or the owners at the time when it came before the board, those who owned the property actually had come up with a use that was allowable.
Taking that off.
And because it was allowable and they had everything in line, I think, and I wasn't a part of the board, that the board denied it without, and which would have required it to come back, I don't know, 2 years or a year later. But there was no, I don't know the justification for denial. However, I do know that it has a certain number of allowable uses on it, so I don't know if it would be rendered a taking if it's not allowed to do a racetrack, because that's not the only use or the only highest and best use for that particular property. So I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. Plus, when we're talking about land use and property rights, there's a whole lot more that goes into it than us as a board deciding or thinking that we should agree that we want to do a racetrack, because, as you indicated, it's 130 acres. I didn't recall how many acres it is right now. I don't know much about the property other than the fact that it was Moroso at one point, right? So now going into the fact that we want to, as a board, agree that we should have a racetrack in Palm Beach County, that may be one thing.
Commissioner
but
Powell,
we don't
but
own it.
with one difference, not saying it has to have a racetrack, that we absolutely only want a racetrack. We're just saying that's another option, another tool in the toolkit for somebody who would potentially want to buy that property, is all that this would be doing. And if you're worried about legalities, I would say we could always have staff take a look at it and see if there is a legal way, if it could be legal to do that.
Would this be, are we circumventing the private initiation aspect of this?
Yes, we are. We should not be deciding what that property needs to be. There's a property owner. It's up to the property owner. If that owner thinks there's a lot of people that would be interested if it was a racetrack zoned or the use was racetrack, then they should go ahead and do that. That's not for us to get ahead of ourselves.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss.
Yeah, I think having a racetrack is a wonderful idea, but I think it's all you need to do is, if you're concerned about people wanting, they can just watch this video and they can hear us and hear the discussion. I think trying to put it in writing is problematic. There's no guarantee at the end of the day, and so I think. And to my colleague's point, he's a professional in that area, and so for him to put his name on something, I totally understand why he wouldn't want to do that, because maybe comes a great job comes along and he decides, hey, I want to be a land planner again, and now I can't be hired by this firm because I've gotten involved in this. So I understand totally understand your point, and unless you get it clarified by professionals. But still, I would be sort of circumspect. But I understand your point too, and I think just tell them, watch a video. If somebody's interested, they'll get a sense of where people's heads are at. And I think it's probably the easiest way to deal with this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any additions, Vice Mayor? Good with that?
I'm good.
Okay. Does anyone else have board direction that they would be interested in sharing with us? I would like to request the board for approval to send a letter in support of the Center for Child Counseling in their 2026-2027 state appropriation request. Center for Child Counseling is one of those agencies that we partnered with at our last meeting. I personally wrote this letter last year. I think it would say a lot if it came from support of the entire board. So that's what I'm looking for. And so I guess I'll ask the vice mayor to make a motion.
I'll make
that
the
we do that.
motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Sachs?
Okay, so this is a letter that's going to go to the state of Florida, to the state.
Correct.
And it's going to, now what does it do with our lobbying team, though? Don't they?
This is nothing, this is just a letter of support for it. When we support initiatives from our nonprofits, we actually have them on our what we're not looking at today. But this is the same same letter I wrote personally last year, and it's really a request. It's just that we're supporting their
You
request.
wrote it last year and it was fine. Write it again.
I would like it to come for the entire board.
Oh, as mayor.
As
from the
mayor,
entire
I would
board.
like to say this. I'm pleased to write this letter of support on behalf of
You
the board.
don't have to read. I trust you. It's fine. I didn't know that. I just thought if you wrote it last year, you write it again. But if you want us all to sign it and be a part of that, then I trust you. I'm sure it'll be good. Thank you.
This is for training for counselors, and it's counselors are all over the state that get trained by Center for Child Counseling, and that's what this is for. So that's I just wanted. So I had a motion from the vice mayor. Do I have a second from Commissioner Powell? All in favor, all opposed? See, that motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, we're on to commissioner
Madam Mayor.
comments. How about if I start with?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if this is board direction. What
I know it's kind of
maybe
squishy.
it is, but Faith's Place, and I'll make a comment about them in my comments, we recently did the grand opening of the Mac Bernard Park, in which they would be our operator, Noble Lockhart Mays. And there's been some snags with regard to between county and health department, and I would like to, I don't know if I could have board or direct staff to work with Faith's Place to kind of iron out these issues so that we can expedite this process, because there should have been, there was a CO and they should have been in the building by now, and that's kind of been held up. So I don't know if that's board direction or if that's just something, hey, we need to kind of work on that together.
Again, I think board direction is kind of squishy. We're not really sure what really warrants board direction, but I believe this warrants a further discussion. So Tammy, if you want to make some suggestions.
Certainly, and we have been working with Faith's Place in order to get them in and get them started. There have been a few snags in the child care licensing. I think most of those issues have been resolved. Ultimately, the decision rests with the Board of County Commissioners. Usually, the recommendations come through the Child Care Advisory Board. But what I would suggest, because this wasn't a noticed item on today's agenda, is because there is some real timing issues, that we bring it to you with your permission on Thursday at the zoning board meeting, so then it can be noticed, and we could handle the licensing issue at that point in time, so that they would be able to get in. If they're not able to get in before the end of the year, actually I think before the end of the week, they're losing space where there are children enrolled, and they need to get them moved over to the Senator Mac Bernard. So with the board's authorization, we can put that on Thursday's agenda.
Commissioner Powell, is that good? Perfect. Thank you, Tammy, for the explanation. Appreciate it. Okay. Board comments. Commissioner Flores, let's start with you.
So I missed an appointment. I'm appointing Noel Martinez to discover the Palm Beaches.
Okay. No problem.
And just wanted to let the board know that last night, District 3 held a little basketball game with PBSO against firefighters, and I am absolutely sore today. So we had a great time, only one injury, and we look forward to continuing the tradition.
Thank you. Commissioner Sacks.
Thank you so much. I'd like to challenge District 3 in a basketball game as long as I have the EMS officers on my side. Then I think we can take them on, and we'll put some money up for charity. We've done this, so the challenge is on. Let's do it. Let's do it. Right, let's do it. I'm on for it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to offer condolences to the family of John Myers, a longtime county employee of 41 years, passed away last Thursday evening from injuries sustained during a shooting that occurred outside his residence. I can't think of many things more sad going on, and this did happen in my district, and I just want to send out our thoughts and prayers to the family and friends of this person, so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. Just want to alert the community, there have been new temporary flight restrictions put in place at PBI. Typically, during season, due to the volume of traffic, we'll see planes being fanned out. And then last term, when we had President Trump in office, we had temporary flight restrictions when he was here at Mar-a-Lago. They've now taken those temporary flight restrictions, so they will be in place 24/7 for the next year. And so people should plan accordingly. So you'll be seeing or hearing flights if you live in the north east of the airport. All traffic's going to be headed to the north, so you'll be, I guess, hearing, potentially seeing that traffic that you might not have seen in the past or knew about. And then secondarily, people will need to plan accordingly when we get into season, because the expectation is there will not be any more fanning. So in the past, they were able to send planes off sort of one after another. They'll have to stack up, and so the expectation is we'll have a few more delays at PBIA during season. So just making the public aware of it. There's nothing for us to do. This was ordered by the Federal Aviation Administration.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To echo Commissioner Baxter's sentiments, we did lose an employee. John Meyer, want to send condolences to his family. Also, just take the time to remind our staff and us to continue to be safe. I did have an opportunity this weekend to return to the highest of 7 hills in Tallahassee, Florida. You know, when the dark clouds gather along the horizon. But I do want to give a shout out to Faith's Place. We did not cross paths while we were there, but let me just tell you, I heard that the several announcements that were made in terms of Faith's Place winning competitions. I think it was Battle of the Bands and winning awards and funding and all those things that echo here, back here in Palm Beach County. So congratulations. I'm sorry that I missed y'all. I was trying to get to you, but I couldn't. There was a lot going on. So I do want to congratulate you all, but it was a great return home to Florida A&M University. It's homecoming, and it was a great homecoming, reminding everybody that the Rattlers will always strike, and strike again. Thank y'all. Be safe until Thursday.
You're welcome. I would like to request an off-site proclamation recognizing Pratt & Whitney's 100th anniversary to be presented this Friday, October 24th.
So moved.
I've got a motion from the mayor, a second from Commissioner Weiss. All in favor, all opposed. See, that motion carries 6-0. And I'd also like to remind staff, I think I did a board request about Stop the Bleed. So how are we doing on that? Stop the Bleed? I made a board request a while back about seeing what we can do for our staff to get trained under the Stop the Bleed program. I just wanted to make sure it reminds you to continue Stop the Bleed. So if something happens and someone gets injured, you learn how to do a tourniquet and all that kind of stuff. And it's just one more tool in our toolbox. So I made that a while back, and I just wanted to remind staff. All right. So we are now adjourned at 12:16. We'll see folks back here on Thursday for zoning.